By the time the call center fluorescent lights buzzed into life in the early morning, Jessa Lorne already knew two things. 1. Praise is loud but temporary. 2. Resentment is quiet and patient, like a stain that spreads while everyone admires the clean shirt. Her cubicle sat in the back row of Helioline Support, the customer care wing for Brightcart Outfitters, the kind of retail giant that sold everything from blender parts to budget blazers. Jessa had a corporate resume and a corporate spine, yet here she was, mid-30s, headset on, reading scripts about refund policies, while pretending that the carpet did not smell like old coffee and brave disappointment. The day before, she had taken a call that was not about a missing package. A woman on the line had slurred her words, gasped, and gone frighteningly quiet. Jessa had done what the training manual begged people to do, and what too many people froze before doing. She had called 911, stayed calm, kept the caller talking, and followed procedure like it was a lifeline. Later, the dispatcher confirmed it. Without quick action, the caller would not have made it. So the next day, City Lens Network walked in with cameras, a producer, and that sweet, sharp smell of public approval. They filmed Jessa at her desk, praised her steady voice, and asked what it felt like to be a hero. Jessa answered with polite restraint and a smile that hid her discomfort. Being praised for doing the bare minimum of humanity felt like getting a trophy for returning a shopping cart. Her manager, Nadine Strick, loved the moment like it was a personal achievement. Nadine shook Jess a hand, announced a raise, and handed over a bonus envelope with theatrical flair. The whole floor clapped, people cheered, some even cried. One man tried to hug Jessa and got blocked by her swivel chair. And then the applause faded, and two coworkers began the slow work of turning admiration into punishment. Lark Vance and Tamsin Crow were stationed a few rows away, close enough to perform their disapproval at full volume. They started with little comments that were meant to sound like compliments. "Oh, look, it is Saint Jessa," Lark said, loud enough for the aisle to hear. "Bless us with another miracle, why do not you?" Tamsin leaned back in her chair, hands behind her head, as if she was reclining on a throne made of grievances. "Do you carry an ambulance in that purse? Or do you just summon one with your perfect halo?" Jessa kept her eyes on her screen, clicked through her cue, and let their words slide past. She had survived corporate boardrooms. She could survive two women who treated jealousy like a full-time job. But their jokes did not stop. They refused to sit with her at lunch. They stopped sharing updates about policy changes. They left her off informal team chats. They made every praise sound like an insult. They called her names dressed up as humor, savior, princess, spotlight thief. Then quotas came for them. Brightcart measured performance with an obsession that bordered on romance. Every call, every second, every survey score, every pause between greetings had a number attached. Lark and Tamsin had been skimming by for months on charm and noise. But numbers do not care about charm. They fell behind, their call times bloated, their customer scores sagging. A week later, Nadine called them into the glass conference room. The whole floor watched through the transparent walls like it was a soap opera with office chairs. Lark walked out with a face like a thundercloud. Tamsin walked out with a smile so tight it looked painful. Performance improvement plans. The corporate version of a warning label. That should have been the end of it. A normal workplace would have let everyone focus on their own screens and their own lives. But Lark and Tamsin were not interested in improving. They were interested in punishing. Jessa noticed small things at first. A ticket she knew she had closed showing back up as unresolved. A note in the system that did not sound like her tone. A customer survey linked to her name, even though she had never spoken to that person. Tiny stones dropped in her path. Someone was building a case, quietly, patiently, like a stain. Jessa leaned back, stared at the rows of cubicles, and let her smile return, slow and deliberate. If they wanted a story, she would give them one. Only this time, she would write the ending. Jessa did not confront Lark and Tamsin. Confrontation was a gift, and she did not give gifts to people who tried to set traps. Instead, she became the kind of calm that made nervous people itch. She started by keeping receipts, not the paper kind Brightcart customers waved at cashiers, but the digital kind that lived in timestamps and system logs. Every call had a record, every edit had a signature, every change left a footprint, even when someone tried to tiptoe. Jessa opened a private spreadsheet on her desktop and labeled it with the most boring title she could imagine: Training Notes. No one ever snooped in training notes. She copied ticket numbers, time windows, customer names, and the exact phrases that did not sound like her. Then she watched. Lark and Tamsin did not hide their performance. They performed their hostility like it was theater. Lark rolled her eyes whenever Jessa walked by. Tamsin made loud sighs when Jessa received praise for handling a difficult caller. They treated the floor like it had a stage, and they were determined to win the audience, even if they had to set the curtains on fire. One afternoon, sometime after lunch, Jessa returned from the break room with a cup of tea and caught the scent of trouble. Her chair was not angled the way she left it. Her headset cord was coiled too neatly. Jessa sat down, wiggled her mouse, and saw her screen wake up to a ticket page that was not hers. Someone had been in her account. She could have marched to Nadine. She could have filed an immediate complaint. But Jessa understood something about corporate reactions. People only panic when numbers panic first. She needed a pattern, not a single incident. She needed a story that could not be shrugged away as office drama. So she laid bait. Brightcart had a little-known feature in the ticketing software. It allowed a user to place an internal marker on a file, visible only in back-end logs. Jessa set up a handful of low-risk tickets, created notes with harmless phrases, and placed markers on them. She did not touch customer information. She did not break any rule. She simply set a thread of glitter across the floor and waited for someone to walk through it. 2 days later, one of those tickets reappeared in her queue, edited with sloppy grammar and an unnecessary attitude. The marker was still there, but now it came with a new set of fingerprints, an edit time that matched Lark shift, a workstation ID that belonged to the row near the window, and a username that had been used to access Jessa account from another terminal. Jessa sipped her tea and updated her training notes. Meanwhile, Lark and Tamsin grew bolder. Their improvement plans demanded better results, and instead of working, they hunted shortcuts. They tried to push complicated calls into other queues. They disconnected quickly and blamed callers for bad audio. They begged top performers for tips, then mocked those same people behind their backs. They also tried to poison the room against Jessa. "She gets special treatment," Lark said to anyone who would listen. "They love a pretty little headline." Tamsin nodded with exaggerated sympathy. "If you save one person, you get a bonus. If you grind for years, you get a pizza party. It is a scam." Jessa did not argue. She took calls. She hit her numbers. She handled angry customers with the smooth patience of someone who had once negotiated with executives over budget cuts. One evening, as the floor thinned and the last calls dragged on, Nadine stopped by Jessa's cubicle. Nadine's expression was bright, but the shine of it looked practiced. "Corporate wants to feature you again," Nadine said. "They are launching a customer care initiative. They want you as the face of it." Jessa tilted her head. "The face or the shield?" Nadine blinked. "Excuse me." Jessa smiled. "I am honored, but initiatives attract attention. Attention attracts opportunists." Nadine gave a laugh that sounded like a door closing. "You worry too much." Jessa kept her voice gentle. "I prepare. There is a difference." Nadine walked away, heels clicking like punctuation. When Jessa looked up, she saw Lark watching from her cubicle, eyes sharp and shining. Tamsin leaned close to Lark, whispering, and both of them glanced toward Jessa's screen like hungry birds. Jessa turned back to her queue, fingers poised over the keyboard. If they wanted the spotlight, she would help them step into it, and then she would turn it on full brightness. The customer care initiative launched with a glossy poster campaign and an internal memo titled Heart Behind the Headset. Brightcart loved catchy slogans, especially when they cost less than actual staffing. Jessa photo appeared on screensavers and hallway monitors. Her expression was composed, her headset angled just so, her name printed beneath a quote about staying calm under pressure. People congratulated her again. Some of them meant it. Some of them said it like a dare. Lark and Tamsin treated the campaign like a personal insult delivered in high resolution. They also treated it like an opportunity. The initiative came with perks: access to training modules, a small budget for team events, and invitations to meetings where managers loved to talk about culture while ignoring workload. Nadine assigned Jessa to lead a peer coaching circle, which sounded flattering until Jessa realized it meant helping everyone else succeed while she stayed chained to her cue. Lark and Tamsin volunteered immediately. "Anything for the team," Tamsin chirped, sweet as syrup. Lark smiled like a knife wrapped in ribbon. "We want to learn from the best." Jessa nodded. That was exactly what she wanted. At the first coaching session, held in a small conference room with a whiteboard and stale air, Jessa kept it simple. She reviewed emergency procedures, escalation steps, and the importance of documentation. She highlighted the kind of calm that saves lives and the kind of accuracy that saves jobs. Lark raised her hand. "What if someone makes a mistake in documentation, like accidentally? Should they be punished for it?" Jessa looked at her. "Mistakes happen. Patterns are choices." Tamsin gave a little laugh. "So wise," Jessa continued. "The system logs everything, every edit, every account access, every change. If someone tries to fix their numbers by moving problems onto someone else, it shows." Lark eyes flickered, quick as a glitch. Jessa wrote 2 words on the board: "Traceability matters." Then she smiled and said, "Now, let us practice with real examples." She brought up anonymized tickets, scrubbed of personal data. She asked each participant to identify the correct steps, the proper notes, the timing of follow-ups. It was training, but it was also a mirror. Lark and Tamsin fidgeted under it. After the session, Lark cornered her near the coffee station. "You really love rules." "I love fairness," Jessa replied. Lark leaned closer. "Fairness is just a story people tell when they want the room to behave." Jessa stirred her tea. "Then you should be careful which story you tell when the room has cameras." That night, Jessa submitted a routine report to Nadine and copied the regional operations lead, a woman named Celeste Armin, who had the reputation of being allergic to nonsense. Jessa kept the message polite, almost boring. She attached anonymized examples of system anomalies and asked if the audit team could confirm best practices for shared terminals. Celeste replied the next day, brief and sharp. "We will review access logs. Thank you for flagging." Jessa read the message twice. Not because she doubted it, but because it was the sound of a door unlocking. Lark and Tamsin did not know about Celeste. They did not know about the request. They only knew that Jessa was still standing and still smiling, which to them felt like defiance. So they escalated. A week later, Jessa received a meeting invite titled Performance Review Follow-Up. No explanation, just a calendar block, early in the morning, and Nadine name attached. Jessa arrived at the glass room with her notes ready. Nadine sat beside a man from compliance named Oren Cade, who wore a tie that looked like it had never met joy. Nadine folded her hands. "We have concerns," she said. Oren slid a folder across the table. "We received reports of policy violations, improper ticket notes, unauthorized account access." Jessa did not touch the folder yet. "Reports from whom?" Nadine lifted her chin. "From colleagues. Multiple colleagues." Jessa glanced through the glass wall and saw Lark and Tamsin at their desks, pretending not to watch. Jessa opened the folder. Inside were printed screenshots of ticket notes with her name attached. Notes that were careless, rude, and wrong. Notes that sounded like someone who thought professionalism was optional. Jessa exhaled slowly. These are not mine. Oren nodded as if he had expected that. Then explain how they came from your account. Jessa met his eyes. Gladly. But I would like the access logs, full workstation IDs, full timestamps, and I would like to include Celeste Armin in this conversation, since she already requested a review of shared terminal access. Nadine blinked. Oren paused, then gave a small, interested smile. Behind the glass, Lark expression tightened. Tamsin posture stiffened. Jessa sat back in her chair. Their trap had snapped shut, just not on her. Oren Cade did not look like the kind of man who enjoyed drama, but he did look like the kind who enjoyed accuracy. He requested the logs immediately, and the room shifted from accusation to investigation with the speed of a dropped pen. Nadine tried to recover. Jessa, this is serious. We cannot have people forging records, Jessa said, calm as a metronome. Agreed. Oren raised a hand. We will proceed with evidence. The word evidence landed like a weight. Within a day, Celeste Armin arrived on site. She did not bring a camera crew or a speech. She brought a laptop, a security badge, and the expression of someone who had canceled something pleasant to deal with something stupid. Celeste asked Jessa to walk her through the anomalies. Jessa did, quietly, with a tidy list from her training notes. Ticket numbers, time windows, workstation IDs, the internal markers that showed tampering. Jessa presented it like an accountant presenting a budget forecast, which was the most devastating way to present wrongdoing in a corporate environment. Celeste listened without interrupting. Then she asked, "Who sits at these terminals?" Jessa did not point. She did not accuse. She simply answered, "Lark Vance and Tamsin Crow are assigned to that row. Their workstation IDs match the access entries." Celeste nodded once. "Thank you." Around midday, Lark and Tamsin were pulled into separate rooms. They walked in confident, like people who believed loudness could rewrite reality. They walked out pale, like people who had just discovered that computers remember everything. The floor went quiet. Even the fluorescent lights seemed to hush. Later, Celeste and Oren called Jessa into the glass room again. Nadine sat there too, but her posture had changed. She looked smaller, like her authority had been folded into a smaller package. Oren spoke first. "The access logs confirm your account was accessed from other terminals." Celeste slid a report across the table. "We also confirmed ticket edits were made by users other than you, using shared terminal loopholes and password guessing." Jessa kept her face neutral. Inside, she felt something click into place. Not glee, not triumph, relief. She had been carrying the weight of suspicion like a hidden bruise, and now it had been seen. Nadine cleared her throat. "We will be taking corrective action." Celeste looked at Nadine. "Correction begins with leadership. Why were shared terminals still active? Why were passwords not updated? Why did you allow peer complaints to become formal accusations without verification?" Nadine opened her mouth, then closed it. Celeste turned back to Jessa. "You did well. You protected yourself without burning the building down." Jessa smiled. "I like the building. It has reliable air conditioning." Oren almost laughed. "There is more. During the review, we found something else." He tapped the report. Lark and Tamsin were not only tampering with records, they were also mislabeling calls to inflate their stats, marking difficult customers as no response, closing tickets without resolution, redirecting complaints to other queues. It explains their quotas and their failures. Celeste's voice was flat. "It also means customers were harmed, not medically perhaps, but in trust and service." Jessa folded her hands. "So what happens now?" Celeste did not soften. "They will be terminated. Nadine will be placed under review. We will implement stricter authentication and end shared terminal access." Nadine flinched. Jessa kept her voice even. "I want one more thing." Celeste lifted an eyebrow. "Name it." Jessa looked at Nadine. The initiative, heart behind the headset. It is not just posters. It should include real emergency response refreshers, and it should include a protected channel for reporting tampering without retaliation. This should not happen again. Oren nodded slowly. Celeste studied Jessa like she was weighing the cost of integrity versus the cost of bad press. Then Celeste said, "Write the proposal. You will lead it. You will have authority to implement it." Nadine swallowed. Jessa leaned back. "Thank you." As she left the room, she passed Lark and Tamsin near the elevators. They were not flanked by security, but they looked like they were walking toward an ending they did not control. Lark glared. "You think you won?" Jessa tilted her head. "No, I think I documented." Tamsin's voice cracked. "We were on plans. We were desperate." Jessa nodded once. Desperation explains behavior. It does not excuse choices. Lark hissed. "You were never one of us." Jessa gave a small, almost sympathetic smile. "Correct. I was one of the customers you forgot were human." The elevator doors closed, and for the first time since the headline, the floor felt like it could breathe. The aftermath did not arrive like thunder. It arrived like paperwork. Lark and Tamsin disappeared from the roster by the next week. Their desks were cleaned out. Their headsets were collected. Their names were removed from the team chat as if they had never existed, which was a strange kind of cruelty, and also a very corporate kind. Nadine Strick remained, but her confidence had been replaced by careful silence. She no longer used Jessa as a trophy. She spoke to her like someone speaking to a colleague with teeth. Celeste Armin visited again, sometime in the early morning, and gathered the floor for a meeting. No posters, no slogans, just policies and consequences. "Customer care is not a stage," Celeste said. "It is an obligation. Documentation tampering is fraud. Harassment is misconduct. Retaliation is termination." No one clapped. No one needed to. Jessa stood at the side, hands folded, listening. She was not interested in applause anymore. She was interested in structure. The proposal became a real program. Jessa built it with the same calm discipline she used on emergency calls. It included quarterly emergency response refreshers, a clear escalation ladder, and a quiet reporting channel overseen by compliance instead of local management. She also requested something radical, a rotating wellness break for high-stress call types, because human brains were not designed to absorb fury for 8 hours and smile through it. To her surprise, Celeste approved most of it. Brightcart loved anything that reduced risk, and Jessa had framed it in the only language the company truly respected: liability, retention, customer trust. One afternoon, Jessa walked the floor and saw a new poster on the wall. It was not her face. It was a simple checklist: stay calm, call emergency services, stay on the line, document accurately, escalate properly. Beneath it, a line in plain text read, "Do the right thing even when no one is watching." Jessa felt a quiet satisfaction that did not need an audience. The witty part of revenge, she learned, was letting people dig their own holes with their own shovels while you stood nearby holding a measuring tape. A few days later, Nadine stopped by Jessa's desk with a stiff smile. "Corporate asked me to thank you. The new program is being copied by other sites." Jessa looked up. "That is good." Nadine hesitated. "I also wanted to say, I should have protected you better. I enjoyed the publicity. I ignored the risks." Jessa considered her for a moment. Nadine had not been malicious. She had been careless, which was sometimes worse because it came with excuses. Jessa replied, "You can repair that. Protect the next person before they need proof." Nadine nodded, then walked away, shoulders tight. Later, near the end of the day, Jessa took a call from a woman who sounded nervous. Her order had been delayed, and she was worried because it included supplies for her father. The woman's voice trembled the way voices do when anxiety sits behind the words. Jessa listened, asked questions, and solved the problem. Not with heroics, with attention, with care, with the steady respect that people rarely receive from strangers. When the call ended, the customer survey arrived within minutes. The comment line read, "Thank you for treating me like I mattered." Jessa stared at it for a long moment. She thought about Lark and Tamsin, about the way they had tried to turn her compassion into a target. They had wanted her to shrink, to apologize for being seen, to step out of the light so they could feel warmer. Instead, she had taken that light and used it like a microscope. She did not need them to suffer. She needed the truth to stand. She needed the rules to mean something. She needed the floor to be safer than it had been. Revenge did not have to be loud. It could be methodical. It could be clean. It could even be a little witty. Jessa adjusted her headset, clicked into the next call, and smiled to herself. Around the early part of the evening, the lights still buzzed, the carpet still smelled faintly of coffee, and the queue still stretched endlessly. But Jessa no longer felt trapped inside her cubicle. Now, she ran the system that kept the traps from being built.